Welcome back. We are going to be writing the equations of square root functions. All right, remember the parent function we're dealing with the square root, so that is the graph that looks like the eyebrow. All right, so let's go ahead and review horizontal shifts. So remember, it's under the square root means it's going to opposites. Instead of plus 3, use left 3. Just notice I went to the left 3 from the origin. Now remember from the outside of the square root it's the same size, so it's going to be up 2. Notice I went from my origin, I went up 2. Now putting them all together, remember my initial is negative 3 2. Zooming so you can see this a little better. I went right 3 up 2, and then I'm going to just graph my pattern. Remember my pattern is right 1 up 1. Return to the initial point. Right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 up 2. Extend your line, draw your arrow. Okay? So we're just going to be writing the equations today. So what really is, you just like we were writing equations for absolute value and quadratics, find the initial point for those you're finding the vertex. So here my initial point is 1 comma 4. Remember, anytime we write the equation of the function, we have to start with x equals. Since it's an eyebrow, we start with the square root. The square is always x, and since it's a positive one, it's minus 1. On the outside of the square, since it's x up 4, x up plus 4. You just have to be careful. Remember, if the graph looks like a V, we're going to start writing the bars, absolute value bars. If the graph is a U, we're going to start by writing parentheses. Okay? The domain, remember the domain is a little bit different for square roots because I don't have arrows on both sides. I start at 1 and then move on. Remember, domain has to do with the axis, so that's going to be by 1. It's always going to be greater than or equal to because we're always going to the right. Greater than or equal to 1. And my range is going to be dealing with the 4. Since I go right 1, up 1, right 4, up 2. Since I'm up, it's going to be greater than or equal to that 4. All right, move on to number 2. Again, you notice that you have a eyebrow shaped graph, so you're going to be writing a square root function. Let's label that initial point. That initial point is negative 2, negative 3. So that's what you right when we're there. So again, we start by writing f of x equals. You will lose points if you don't write f of x. We start by writing the square root, and it's going to be x plus 2 because it's going to be negative. It's the opposite. And then since I go minus 3, I keep it the same minus 3. Right? So my domain, remember that my domain always has to do with the x value. So we're not using the x value in the equation. We use it from the initial point. So it's all, again, so they always go to the right, it's going to be greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to that x value, which is negative 2. For my range, since if you notice I'm going right 1, up 1, right 4, up 2, I'm going up on both of them. Y is going to be greater than or equal to negative 3. If I was going down, that's going to be less than or equal to. All right, let's continue on to number 3. Again, let's find my initial point, and you notice that this eyebrow, but it's an eyebrow going down, so it's 2 comma 7. So again, we're going to start by writing f of x equals. What do you think? Should I start writing the square root first or the negative? You should be saying the negative because it's going down. But I have what's under my square root. Since this is a 2, it's minus 2. And since this is a plus 7, again, it's outside. Be careful you don't extend that absolute square root all the way through to the 7. It stops after the negative 2. Okay? Now, just because I went down, notice I'm still going to the right. Since I'm still going to the right, it's always going to be greater than or equal to. And it's going to be greater than or equal to 2. Now, what's the only difference is notice I'm going right 1, down 1, right 4, down 2. Since I'm going down, y is going to be less than or equal to now. Positive 7. Okay? The biggest mistake with this one is honestly forgetting the negative. But you need to make sure since there is a reflection, you have to write that negative. All right, let's go ahead and continue on to number 4. So again, let's go ahead and label that initial point. That initial point is negative 5, comma 2. Negative 5 is the x, y is the 2. We start by writing f of x equals. Again, since I'm going down, it's going to be negative the square root. And since it's a negative 5, it was always the opposite, so x plus 5. And since it's 2, I move up 2, it's a plus 2. Again, the domain. Again, I'm always going to the right for this eyebrow. Right, always go to the right. It's always going to be greater than or equal. Greater than or equal to my x coordinate, which is negative 5. The only thing that possibly could change is the range. Now the range, since I'm going down, this is your reflection, is going to be less than or equal to the y coordinate, which is 2. Next one. First I have my initial point is at 0, negative 5. X is 0, y is negative 5. Again, I'm going to put the x equal. Now, if you notice, my eyeball is going up. There's no reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and start by writing square root. Now, I don't move it left or right at all. So you could put x plus 0 or x minus 0, but that doesn't change anything. So I'm just going to have to store this x under the square root. And then since I moved down 5, it's minus 5. Again, the domain is always going to be greater than or equal to, because I'm always going to the right, and it's going to be greater than or equal to 0, because that's my x coordinate of my initial point. And lastly, my range, since I'm going up, look, right 1, up 1, right 4, up 2, is going to be greater than or equal to that negative 5. All right, last one, and we're on deck. Then we're going to label that initial point. This initial point is negative 6 comma 0. So I have a horizontal shift vertical. And then I'm going to go ahead and start by writing f of x equals. Since there's no reflection, I start by writing the absolute value, the square root. Here, since it's minus 6, I do plus 6. And since there's no horizontal or vertical shift, I could put a plus 0, but does that really change anything? I won't mark off the plus 0. I just don't need to write it. The domain, again, since I'm always going to the right, it's always going to be greater than or equal to. And since it's negative 6 is my x coordinate, it's negative 6. And my range is, since I'm going up, look, right 1, up 1, right 4, up 2. It's going to be greater than or equal to 0. That's my y coordinate. All right, let's move on to the back. All right, so the first part is we're just going to graph functions, graph the different functions, and then we're going to identify the specific parts of them. The first thing you should notice is you see an f the square root part. And you know you're dealing with an eyebrow, but you also see a negative part. So I have an eyebrow that's going down. So is the reflection? Yes. What's the horizontal? Since plus 3, left 3, minus 5 means down 5. Remember, square roots don't have vertices because you don't have arrows on both sides, so that's why I'm asking just for the initial point. Your is negative 3, negative 5. Let's do what the domain is. Now remember, we don't need to use the parent function. Go only if you did not memorize the pattern. But I'm assuming most of you memorized the pattern. So my eyebrow starts with left 3, down 5. Now, my pattern is right 1, up 1. But do I go up if there's a reflection? No, I go down. Again, you always go to the right. You never go to the left. Now you're going to go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down 2. That's the point from the initial. It's very important that you don't extend this after that initial point. It starts with the initial, so that's what the initial is called, the starting point, and then move on. All right, let's talk about the domain. And my domain is not the only one because I don't have arrows on both sides. Okay? But since I always greater than or equal to, notice what the arrow, doesn't that arrow? I'm always going to the right, that's why I choose this arrow. And since I has a negative 3 at the x value, that's what I choose. Now my range, since I'm going down, look, right 1, down 1, right down 2, it's going to be less than or equal to my y-coordinate, which is negative 5. Next one. All right, number 8. Notice you have the parentheses. So you're dealing with a U-shaped graph, a quadratic. Nope, you have a reflection? No, because there's no negative in front. Horizontal shift, minus 4 means right 4. Plus 2 is up 2. Notice I asked for vertex now because the quadratics have vertexes. We have arrows on both sides. And vertex is 4, 2. Deal with the main range of these. Again, if you memorize the pattern, don't fill out the parent function. So I go right 4, up 2. I'm just going to graph my pattern. Since there's no reflection, I'm going to be going up. Right 1, up 1. Return to the vertex. Right 2, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the vertex. Remember the pattern continues on the left. Left 1, up 1. Return to the vertex. Left 2, up 4. And for the eyebrow is the only function that we do not continue on the left. It's only on the right hand side. Make your U shape. That's not very good. Sorry about that, guys. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the domain. I have arrows on both sides, and my domain is all real numbers. And my range, look, are both arrows going up or both going down? They're both going up, so if you get greater or greater than or equal to, you look at the lowest point. That lowest point is a closed circle, so I know I'm dealing with or equal to. Y is greater than or equal to, whatever the y coordinate is 2. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're identifying the type. So that's the quadratic, absolute value, or square root. And then we're going to talk about later the domain and the range. So let's look at number 9. What is the type of function? Well, the type I see is square root. I see an eyebrow, so I know my eyebrow is a square root. Okay? Now, when we're listing the domain, I guess it's nice and easy to figure out what the initial is. -1, -2. Since I don't have arrows on both sides, I'm just going to the right. Remember, my domain is going to be greater than or equal to that x coordinate, which is -1. And my range, look, I'm going up. Right 1, up 1. Right 4, up 2. So it's going to be greater than or equal to that y coordinate, which is -2. All right, next question. Notice I have a U-shaped graph. What is a U-shaped graph? A quadratic. Go ahead and write the next one. It's always nice and easy because I'm just going to use that y coordinate. My domain, I got arrows on both sides, so that is still all real numbers. My range, see how they're both going up? The arrows are both going up. So it's going to be greater than, actually it's going to be greater than or equal to because it's a closed circle because it actually touches +1. That's the y. Okay, and again, here it's just going to be a line. Do you remember what a line is called? The type of function is linear. And what's easy about linear is do I have arrows on both sides? Yep. My domain is all real numbers. And since look, one arrow is going up and one arrow is going down, my domain is also all real numbers. Sorry, my pen's going out. Okay. And that is about it. So let's go ahead and stop that video to complete our homework.